Hello, everybody, and welcome and thank you for joining the VooPlayer Q&A weekly webinar. We're going to get started here in just a second, but before we do, if you'll be so kind as to confirm that you can hear my voice as well as see my screen, which should say VooPlayer Q&A on it, and that we can get started. Thank you. All right, we're getting some confirmations. Hello, Dean. Hello, William. Kyle, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So I want to welcome you everybody to once more to the VooPlayer Q&A weekly webinar call. The purpose of these webinar calls is really to answer any questions which you as users may have, also to provide training on any advanced features, showcase new stuff that we've been working on, and also to gather feedback from you guys as users on how we can keep improving VooPlayer. Hello, Steve, as well. So the format of the webinar is pretty simple. At any time that you have a question or a suggestion, just feel free to drop it in the chat box, and then we'll start answering them in the order that they come in. Hello, Wilson. Feel free to start asking questions or making suggestions at any time. With regards to some of the announcements that I wanted to make, so the progress, I see a lot of people from the previous webinars, but I see a lot of new faces as well. So I'll go through this once more just for people who are not familiar with it. So the current focus of the VooPlayer's development team is really twofold. One is on increasing the value provided through the newly created the entire, basically complete rework of the overlays and annotations feature, which is the most used feature in VooPlayer, by rather than requesting users to provide custom coding for the overlays if they want to do, for example, a simple button in the corner of the video, we're enabling them to do that much more quickly with the newly redesigned approach to overlays, which uses templated overlays and basically drag and drop point and click functionality to allow you to manipulate those overlays. And as far as progress, we've integrated, I believe, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 templates thus far, which are nearing completion. So, and of course, as I mentioned the previous time, we are looking for good template ideas which are going to increase the value of this to the users. So we have simple text links, which can be as buttons or as full screen overlays. We also have image links, which can be like small cards such as this one, or they can be also sort of like a promotional if you're promoting a product. So we have text links, we have image links, we have button calls to actions, opt-in boxes, coupon boxes, note boxes, which are simple sort of like chat boxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're creating a bunch of different templates currently, and we are kind of ironing out the last kinks in them, and we're soon going to be ready to release this to the public within the next week, I hope. So that's kind of the status update progress on this. Is so we basically completed all the functionality, and at this point we're just prettying up the templates which we want to provide as sort of the initial offering before we gather more feedback on which templates are useful. So Kyle has a question. Video mark markers, how should they be used? All right, so we'll get to that really soon. So just one more quick announcement update. So with regards to performance optimizations, I know that everybody's waiting to learn about that. So performance optimizations also nearing completion. So the method, which you can read about more in our release notes for month of April, whereas the optimizations of the player itself, basically loading instantly on your pages, deferring the load time until the user has clicked on the video, are also almost ready to be released. So also looking at about an additional week or so for that to start becoming available for people to test out and for us to start gathering more feedback on that. So again, if you haven't seen this, if you haven't seen the performance optimizations in practice, I urge you to check out that release notes article for the month of April. That's available at woolplayer.com/blog. Just make a quick reference to it. woolplayer.com/blog, and that's in the April release notes, I believe. Let me just take a look at it. April release notes, and there's a section which talks a little bit about the performance optimizations and what all it kind of includes, and also there's a brief video explaining what the performance optimizations are and how they're behaving. So I do urge you to take a look at that when you get a chance to. Luis is asking, where are the release notes for 2018? All of the release notes are available at woolplayer.com/blog. That's where they can see. So all right, that's kind of, as I mentioned, we've been strongly focusing on those two things, some smaller things as well, a bunch of debugging work and feedback implementation work as always, but those have been sort of two main things we've been focusing on, and we expect to get a lot of value back in return for that invested effort. So stay tuned for us making that sort of beta release for those two features, so you can start testing them out as well. All right, so let's see. Let's get back to Kyle's question. So video markers, how should they be used? So we can do that on this video. So we have a feature in interactions and CTAs, which is called chapter markers. So the intent of utilizing chapter markers is really to bring attention to particular points in the video which are of significance. So if you have a really long video, but you have some interesting points in it which you feel should be highlighted, then you can add markers to your video timeline. So for example, I can add, so let's actually do something interesting here. So the bunny gets out of his cave and then he comes up over here. Let's see what he's going to do next. Smells flowers, so we can do it at that point. So right over here at second 19, we can add a marker that the bunny smells flowers. So I'm going to come over here to markers, and I'm going to name this smells flowers. Bunny smells flowers, and that's going to be a marker at second 19. So I'm just going to add that marker. And then we can continue with the video and say something else happens at second 25, for example. And that's interesting. From what I'm seeing, that we have a bit of a bug there, because all of them are being added at second 0 instead of the second which I assigned to them. So that's probably what's causing some confusion there. So let me just see. Yeah, obviously none of that is going to work as they are all added to second 0. So obviously there seems to be a little bug there, so apologies for that. But the intent really is for these markers, I don't know if you can see it, the one which is added over here at the very beginning of the timeline, the little yellow spot, those should be on the assigned times across the timeline. So when the user interacts with them, i.e. hovers over them, you could provide simple annotations about what happens in that point in the video. But as I said, it looks like we have a bit of a bug there, so apologies for that. We'll get that sorted and release a fix for that in the next couple of days. While we're on the topic of chapter markers, so we are envisioning to expand this feature a little bit further, aside from just providing a simple title for it. So what we also wanted to do is also provide some sort of content editing around those markers. So for a particular marker, you can also have a title, you can have some sort of content text, you can add links to it, you can add images to it. So basically when users in on the chapter marker for lilies, that would expand additional information for lilies. Steve is saying that he lost sound. Is it just me? No? Anyone? Can anyone hear me? All right, I just reconnected, so hopefully this should be better. Am I back now? Can you hear me? Still no audio? All right, it seems like we're back, so apologies for that. Some technical difficulties with either the webinar platform or the connection. Not sure what that was, but hopefully we're all good here. So I'm getting a few confirmations. So a few people are saying that they can hear me. Jim is saying that he can still hear nothing. Jim, you might want to try just reconnecting to the page, and then we should be good. So let's just give everybody just maybe 30 more seconds just to reconnect if they need to, and then we can continue. I was just talking about expanding the functionality of markers beyond just a simple title, but by also providing additional content, both explanatory content as well as interactive content, which would enable people to bring up something along the lines of overlays by interacting with with those markers. Jim reconnected as well. So all right, great. So we can continue. All right, let's see. Hopefully that answers that question, Kyle, with regards to how we kind of intend for people to use those chapter marker feature. Unfortunately, I also reconnected to the webinar, and it looks like I lost all of the chats. So if you had a question before we started experiencing the audio issues, would you be so kind as to retype it in the chat box, because I lost everything when I reconnected due to the audio problems. I remember one question that Lewis had with regards to the notifications. So previously, and that's a good point. So previously we had those release notes come up in the notifications panel, and I believe we just lost sight of pushing those notifications and just forgot about that. So thanks for reminding us about that, Lewis. We'll be sure to continue doing that for the future releases as well. Jim has a question. When will those changes be made with the markers? Honestly, I don't have an answer for you there, Jim, or Kyle. It's just something that we planned to do, so we're considering it as a feature enhancement. So once we gather enough feedback about it, then we'll start exploring it. But what I can do is I can add the chapter markers enhancements to the ideas board, which Lewis is asking about how often is the ideas board updated. It's updated at any time that we feel that a new thing needs to be added on there. So once we recognize the potential for something to be added and the need for us to explore the viability of an idea, we put it up on the ideas board. So, for example, right now in the webinar, we might be talking about the chapter markers and the so I can give you guys some insight into what that's looking like. So if I open up our ideas board, sort of the admin backend, we can see all of the ideas which are coming in and everything. So let me just bring that up, and all of the feedback which we have gathered. So there's usually a ton of stuff in here from a bunch of different channels. So I'll come over here just to features and just I want to double check just to see if we don't have markers already. Rework video markers, there's video chapters. So we kind of initiated that already among hundreds already additional feedback items. So if we have markers over here, we kind of estimate the adoption value of that, and the value provided as necessarily not that low. And with regards to releases, we have it at within months, so it does not carry any significant priority. But what I can do is I can add that to the portal. So let me just provide some more detail, allowing users to provide additional descriptions and content to a marker point by adding additional descriptions, by adding additional, that doesn't make sense, with interactive and descriptive content, and I'll just add that to the portal board. So we can put that in the under consideration as marketing features. And let me just find a cool image for that. Chapter video. Nah, just chapter icon. Maybe that'll do. Images. I can't find anything cool for it. This will have to do for now, I think. Save images. I'll find something cooler for it a little bit later. Chapters. And we'll just add chapters. That looks cool. And now it's on the ideas board. So now when you go to the portal and look at the features which are under consideration, for example, for what was that, for the marketing features, now we have that rework video markers as video chapters. So you're more than welcome to provide the additional feedback that you have about how you would use that, and what value would it provide to you. So once we start gathering feedback for items such as this, the more feedback we get on them, that helps us prioritize those things more. All right, let's see. What did I miss? Those chapter marketing enhancements would be a game changer for me. All right, Jim, just feel free to add your feedback to this, and then we can just to reiterate on that as well. So this ideas board is available in the application. If you click over here on documentation and support, and you can click on submit and vote on new ideas, and that's going to bring up that portal where you can provide your feedback on a particular thing. Let's see. Kyle is saying, I'm seeing a lot of chapter markers usage in YouTube. That's why I asked about them. Yeah, great. It's a great little tool which could be utilized in many different ways, but then again, so are hundreds of other features. What about adding a lens in markers? What do you mean by adding a lens in markers? I'm not sure I got that. William, what you mean by that? So here's another cool thing that I can do. So for example, Jim said those chapter markers enhancements would be a game changer for me. So I can just add that as feedback instantly from here. So I can just add who provided this, Jim, Jim provided this feedback. Those enhancements would be game changer for me, so I can just submit that inside. So that will be attributed back over there. So Jim, you can provide a little bit more additional details. Chapter markers show names on other video, but on others it doesn't. Could you kindly note that as well? Yep, of course I could. So this is from Habit. Gotcha. And we can save that feedback as well. Zoom pop-up lens for markers or hover lens feature. Still not sure. I get the idea there. So how would that work? You add a marker, and then what do you hover over? You hover over part of a video or the timeline? If you can provide a little bit more clarification about that, William, that'll be great. All right, so that discussion about video markers escalated quite a bit. So, and I'm glad that's a really good productive discussion. I see a lot of feedback. So I'll note all of that feedback from the webinar. Marker enlarges. Yeah, all right. That's kind of what I figured. So basically, just on hover of the marker to have a bit of a visual indication of that point, so the user understands it a little bit better. Yeah, I'll add William's feedback as well to this. William, I don't know which one, so I'll just leave it as William. So we'll commit that feedback as well. All right. Yep. All right, let's see. PowerPoint 2016 allows you to put a video into a presentation either through a YouTube link or putting in a code. I've tried to put in VU code, but it doesn't work. Would this be of interest for the team? Yes, it would. Definitely. So one of the things that I would also ask you to test out, Kyle, before you provide that feedback is when you are generating the embed code for VU Player, you can use either the regular embed code, but some platforms or some systems or some software applications, such as PowerPoint, are not particularly fond of the script element which is in here. And that's completely reasonable because some people are, such as Microsoft, are particularly concerned about people injecting scripts which can execute code within their software. So sort of as a precaution, they usually forbid this element from being used. However, what you can do as a fallback is just utilize the fallback code. So if you activate the fallback code, that's going to give you a somewhat simplified version of the code, which should work across the across all platforms without any security restrictions from that platform. The downside of that, of course, is that without that script, we can do some cool stuff like preloading the video, popping up the video, floating the video, interacting with the video in different ways. So there's a lot of limitations that the fallback code has. So and if you turn that on, you'll get a notice that fallback code is an advanced feature. It compensates for embedding the player on third-party platforms, blah, blah, blah. And I think you can read a bit more about that in the help article for it. So I would urge you to test out that fallback code also in PowerPoint and see if that helps. All right. Let's see if we have any other questions. Again, if you had a question previous to the audio problems, I do apologize, but I did lose them. So if you can just repost them, I would really appreciate that. Let me see. I see no other questions. So if you have a question which you would like answered today, here's William. Was getting a bug on iPhone. Video would not close. Kept on playing. I test if this happens when phone needs. I'll test if this happens when phone needs reboot. That's the first time I hear of behavior such as this. So the video, I assume, was just not responsive to touching your phone. That's the first time I hear about that. So I'm if you can provide us, maybe sometimes what happens is there is a potential always for a conflict between third-party applications. So if you use VU Player in combination with a particular WordPress plugin, or your site has a bunch of custom code on it, there can usually be some conflicts between, but not something that would cause the video to just become unresponsive all of a sudden. So that's kind of different. But what really helps us when you're submitting tickets and issues to WooPlayer support is really providing as much detail as is possible with regards to the environment in which that happens. So, William, if that continues playing for you, just feel free to just send us a ticket over or an email over at support@woolplayer.com, but just let us know which iOS version you're on, as well as which page that's happening. We have a range of device capabilities which we can kind of replicate those tests, but really when you say something along the lines of, on iPhone it's not working for me, that could mean thousands of different things with regards to which version of iOS, which browser on iOS, as well as which environment was that happening on. Meaning, was it on a custom WordPress site? Was it on some sort of within application, and so on and so on. So the more details you provide us with, the better. All right. Would not stop playing when pressing X to go back to normal size. Not sure I know which X you're talking about, because WooPlayer does not have an X when entering full screen. WooPlayer, when enters full screen, it just has a minify icon in the toolbar. What I'm suspecting the X you're seeing might be the native iOS video player, which I think we could determine if we knew the iOS version. All right, I'm going to start wrapping it up for the day. I want to thank you, everybody, for taking the time and joining today's webinar. I do apologize for some of the technical difficulties we had in the middle of the call. Hopefully that didn't disrupt us too much. We had a pretty productive discussion with regards to the enhancements to the video markers. Thanks to Kyle for bringing that up. It prompted a lot of good discussion. Something that we wouldn't have otherwise noted is of such great importance to everybody. So as I mentioned, I noted some of this feedback back to product board with regards to our idea board with regards to the feedback on why those enhancements would be better. But do feel free to continue submitting ideas on that feature for helping us understand the priority this carries for you with regards to the marker chapters. All right, thanks again, everybody, and hopefully you have a great week, and hopefully we'll see you next week.